I couldn't think of a more appropriate person to kick off this event than Kurt Melcher. Kurt rose to prominence in 2014 when he made Robert Morris University the first university to recognize esports as part of the athletic department and offer athletic scholarships to gamers. That helped legitimize the world of college esports. Kurt served as the NCAA's strategic esports advisor, leading the governing body's research of the collegiate esport community and developing frameworks for how esports could be incorporated into the collegiate sports model. Currently, Kurt's the executive director of gaming and esports at Intersport, leading a team of esports and gaming industry veterans that deliver marketing solutions, business strategy, investment intelligence, and original production services. Kurt's program has been highlighted in several prominent news outlets, including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Time Magazine, ESPN, HBO Real Sports, and in the documentary film All Work, All Play. Kirk also became a TED speaker when he presented the TEDx talk, which is fantastic, by the way, Gamers, the Rising Stars of Collegiate Athletics. Ladies and gentlemen, Kurt Melcher.
I want to start off by saying thank you to Chris and your leadership. We've spoken for many years as you've worked tirelessly to kind of get things going and help understanding and help the learning and help, I think, gaming and esports be seen in a different light here at Purdue. And I want to thank all of the deans and the administrators that are here and are willing to give it a chance, because it's not a small thing, and it's not understated that it takes a village to kind of embrace what esports and gaming can be on a campus and understanding why it's so relevant to this student base. Don't have to go too much into this. Thank you, Chris, for that awesome intro. But at Rob Morris, as an athletic director, I started the first varsity program. Honestly, to my surprise, became like a worldwide story. It was overwhelming. But also I received a lot of hate mail and a lot of really mean notes of how I'm destroying American culture and this is not a sport and you're ruining America, which just opened my eyes to the divisiveness of gaming, really intersecting with sort of one, sports, and secondly, in academia. What I want to kind of walk through, and this comes from almost 8 years of learning, is I've literally spoken to hundreds, if not 1,000, of administrators, universities, colleges, student leaders, publishers of how do you do esports? Like, what's the right way to do it? How should we onboard this? And over time, I've learned that the how lives within the why, and that'll be kind of a little bit of a theme throughout this talk, and we'll kind of come back around to it. And then I want to go over, just because I think it's important understanding like gaming and esports, like the size of the industry and what the opportunity space is within there. Then we'll kind of take a look at where formal esports, I guess you could kind of call it varsity. There's no real defining what varsity is, but formal esports, those schools that have supported esports either through budget or staffing or use of school marks, kind of where we are in this space right now. And then just also highlight what some of the challenges I think still that are facing esports, university and scholastic esports, and then coming back to kind of solving for the why. So in 2014, as I mentioned, this was at Robert Morris University as an athletic director, onboarded varsity program, scholarships, hiring a staff, building a facility on campus, scholarshiping student athletes at the same level as we did for basketball and all the other sports, which was, it took a lot of time of talking to presidents and the board, but eventually over time, they kind of were able to kind of come and see the same vision that I did. I believe that it was because I'd been at Robert Morris for so long and I'd sort of built up this professional cachet. I'd been on long-range plans. I always feel like if I was a 21-year-old student on campus and brought the same white paper and proposition, I would be like, oh, okay, thank you, out the door. But I think I was able to sort of narrate it from an administrator side. And I understood then that as I started to talk to other university leadership, that the alignment to just one-to-one in athletics as a true sport, which I do believe it is and has real value within that, because I was an athletic, I was a scholarship athlete at University of Illinois Chicago for soccer, and I really valued what that gave to me through personal development, through leadership, through direction, and my athletic experience. I really valued that, and then I obviously went on as a career in athletics, and that's where I thought that one-to-one really made sense, but I also saw the broader opportunity, and I had worked to sort of say, hey, we should also have a club setting, and we should also maybe think about curricular elements, because this is a massive industry and it's only growing. But even at Robert Morris, they sort of were siloed into just athletics, and I couldn't break through those other areas. But I realized that in other areas, generally, administrators, particularly provosts, presidents, are, I don't want to be ageist, but may have a different perspective of what gaming is and how relevant it is and what it means now and how it's formed. I think there's a default to, oh, video games, Pac-Man and Donkey Kong games are much more sophisticated now and are built in true team environments that require elite level communication and synergy similar to sports. But I understood that the one-to-one narrative of just sports may be difficult to grasp and understand. So that's when I think all of us, when I say us, sort of those evangelizing in this space, began to expand the vision and help universities and administrators understand that there's a broader opportunity. Competition for sure is relevant and it's just built in the DNA, but there's a broader subsect of what's possible. And I started solving through some of that narrative through just the size of the industry and what it means and how prevalent it is. Because the truth is, everybody is a gamer in the United States now. Over 76% of American kids under 18, which are going to be collegiate customers, students, play video games, are avid video game players. It's a massive, growing, and expanding technology industry. And it's not just for kids, as we can see in here. Almost 3 out of 4 Americans play video games of some kind. My mom plays little bubble matching games, spends too much money in those little bubble matching games. I'm like, there are free versions, but I get the bills all the time. But it's an engaging tool. It's relevant, and everyone participates. And if we take a look at sort of the gaming and esports space, right, understanding gaming is a massive industry. It is larger than the music industry and the box office industry combined. And sometimes that is a sneaky stat. And I show this to brands that we talk to when I work at Intersport to help those understand that this is huge. This is the dominant form of interactive entertainment there is. But sometimes it gets left to the side. And esports is a component of this massive gaming industry. And esports is the most sort of engaging element within that gaming industry. And you get it, right? Be like, hey, we get it. Gaming is huge, it's good. But that also, I think, highlights the opportunity space as universities and colleges are built mission-driven to prepare students to have successful engagements post-graduation into thriving industries. And I think as we heard in the preface from the deans and such, there are such opportunities. It's not just pro gaming. There's a wide array and a wide opportunity space. And we just heard from, was it Madden or somebody, one that worked in the music design, is spectacular. Just highlights the opportunity space that is right here on campus that probably was just never surfaced. And beyond that, I think what's interesting is that gaming now still, I believe, suffers from this little bit of a stereotype of lazy, Cheetos, Red Bull, waste of time. But gaming now is becoming part of popular culture, whether that's through Fortnite, Ariana Grande, Travis Scott, Pokemon embracing different elements of music, movies, and well, finally there's good video game movies, because they, like about 5 years ago, they were all trash, but now there's finally some true Hollywood investment into telling this narrative and telling these storylines, which are really important, because I think it just helps normalize what gaming is and it sort of elevates the importance to just in general popular culture. And I put this in here because this is, I think of how horrible COVID was to educate, to just about every industry. It was actually kind of okay for gaming and for esports, because what it did was two things. One, during COVID, the narrative of gaming and what it meant to culture and to engagement were surrounded around two things. One was the economic factor. There's double the amount of people watching on Twitch, double amount of purchases within consoles and all, just because everyone was locked at home. They were looking for something to do. But the more important part was that it became an engagement tool. And the narrative, first time ever, in my opinion, popular sort of media was like, hey, people are able to connect through gaming. People are coming together through gaming. And it was the first time ever, in my opinion, that there was a positive narrative around what it means and what it means socially to a community, which I think those that are in this space already knew just as inherent, because that's what we do. We get together with our friends and play games. While we're talking about games, we're talking about classes, we're talking about what's going on in our lives. It's not just about the game. That's how you communicate and connect, which is really important. But I still think there is work to do, particularly in sort of large universities, and it's great to hear that Purdue is, this is the ground floor, as you said, that like, hey, what are ways that we can intersect and add value and true academic rigor in this industry? And I show this sort of snippet in cartoon to universities, but I also show it to big brands and some of the major brands that we work with, Rocket Mortgage, we work with 7-Eleven, Samsung, a lot of blue chip brands, but there's still this gap of understanding of what it means culturally, gaming. So, and watching, right? When I talk to sometimes big brands or agencies, they're like, yeah, I've heard about Twitch, but what is it? Which, kind of shocks me. So I start with this sort of quick little funny video, or a little snippet of this guy, right? Hey, what are you doing? Oh yeah, I'm watching this, but you're not even playing? He's like, no. He's like, oh my God, what a waste of time. And then sure enough, he goes and watches the game on TV, which is the exact kind of same thing, right? So I think somehow this little cartoon connects the dots in a unique way, right? It's just a form of entertainment, the same as watching other people play sport. You're watching other people play esports. And outside of the growth of the industry, growth of gaming video content and consumption is growing at a massive rate, right? Particularly as I mentioned during COVID, we saw double the impact in Twitch engagement and YouTube gaming engagement. And this just puts a little quick comparison to, say, the UEFA Champions League. And sort of entertainment norms and engagement within interactive media is changing as well. And this just kind of, this chart kind of just shows what Gen Zs. The blue graph is those that watch traditional sports on television, right? Major League Baseball, football. And green shows those that watch other people play video games online, like Twitch or YouTube gaming, right? And then right here is where we see kind of that dramatic shift of between 18 and 25 of the preference shift, right? Now, the narrative here is not like sports are going away, esports, but it just wants to highlight, I want to highlight the relevance of what gaming is to this group and to this demographic, how important it is to their entertainment. And by the way, the average age of a TV viewer of Major League Baseball is 57, and the average age of a TV viewer of NASCAR is 58. So the joke kind of in the industry is like, well, one traditional sport viewer will die, and then it'll be replaced by 2 esport viewers. It's kind of morbid, but and within sort of that gaming video content consumption, if we look, the most engaging is esports, as you can imagine, right? As far as time watched and how long, right? Just because, and that doesn't mean like you're watching live. It means, hey, you're watching a VOD, or you're kind of tuning into a review or watching highlights. But as you can imagine, it's the most engaging because it has sort of those background narratives of teams and storylines and everything else. Now, I want to kind of personalize this a little bit, go back to scholastic esports and solve some of the why. And, as an educator, which I believe as an athletic director and as a coach, I 100% believe I am a teacher, was a teacher in shorts, because I know for sure I had that same amount of impact as any of the professors on campus, because I had invested interest in student outcomes, and I still keep in touch with many alumni from Robert Morris from all the years. But I want to highlight this guy in the middle, Derek Michaud, who is an unbelievable story. And we all have, when you're engaging with students, you have those special students that just thrive under you and achieve post-graduation and do great things. And this is one of those kids. He also played sports. He played baseball, played football in Washington. And he loved to play League of Legends. And his senior year, when he was a football player, he got injured. And he really leaned into the League of Legends because he couldn't participate in football. And he became an elite level player because he was an elite talent. He was challenger level. And he was one of our first scholarship players to come in. And he thrived in the environment of support because he loved the team camaraderie, right? He never really had that because he played alone in his room, had teams that he played on, but never one-to-one in a room in a same sort of LAN environment. That was provided to him. Elite level coaching, support, uniform, sort of the identification of you're playing as part of a university and you're recognized and you are responsible for your team and your team is responsible for you, thrived because he understood that it was valued. And it's stories like that and guys like him and girls that really, made me double down and say, like, this is, I thought it was relevant and I thought the application to what I valued in my athletic experience would apply. And this sort of, in some ways, proved it out to me. Because it's really just about engaging and empowering a new student demographic, right? And this example is in varsity. And it's important because as we look across what's in the scholastic space, and this is data from publishers, from Riot Games, students in collegiate esports programs across, this is over 450 schools, 74% of them have 3.0 GPAs or better. Now that's in varsity and formal programs, but also just in club programs. And 65% of those identify coming from a STEM academic background. Obviously, I wonder if there's a good engineering school around here that's close by. Do you know of one at all? Yeah. And this is the most shocking kind of stat that I felt was that of those 400 programs and all the students participating, and there were multiple levels of teams, that 47% of those students do not participate in traditional school activities and programming. So that means they're not part of any kind of club system. They're not in Greek life. They're not attending athletic events. They are just sort of in the shadows because what they're passionate about is gaming and video games and that culture, and they find their own, and they kind of have to go and assemble in different pieces and parts, whether it's in their dorm rooms or if they're meeting at a Starbucks to use that Wi-Fi to play. But that is a big sort of shadow gap across the United States that we're missing out on in engaging students. And as we know, right, 28% of those that are involved in some sort of programming identify with the brand, like Purdue, Boilermakers, much stronger, right? So it's an opportunity missed in some ways. And again, solving the how through the why, I think as we think about like as sort of just the normal stereotype of gaming, help solve for that narrative is truly through research. And we're starting to get some of that now. And that's why I think academic institutions and academic rigor put against what this industry is and what gaming is can really play an important role in the future in solving for some of these issues. But as we know, and a lot of this work is done by UCI and their research efforts, but there is positive learning elements to it. And I think Stephen does a lot of this, right? That games in formal situations can help visual acuity, scientific reasoning, language, literacy, problem-solving skills. And really what I valued through sort of this intersection of gaming and institution was sort of this paradigm, where I believe that formal sort of competition doesn't have to be varsity, but formalized competition with the university support, whatever level it is, can add in all these sort of different levels of soft skills and the value add that competition and format can play, right? If there's an adult in the room, that this can be offered through esports, right? Obviously, I put esports on top of that. This is like from IMG Academy, but I believe that this intersection can play a value proposition across all of that, because I received that as an athlete. And I know like Derek Michaud and some of the students that came through our program received that. And as we know in athletics, there is research that shows there are positive outcomes, right? Those that are engaged in athletics or club or some kind of programming have higher GPAs. They recognize personal growth, satisfaction with school, higher degree completion, and it cultivates persistence, right? Specifically an internal locus of attribution, right? Which means you feel that you're validated from your efforts in something, right? And that what you've put in has meaning and has outcome, which certainly I think that's why there are athletics, right? I think that's why they exist at universities. And I think as we think about the sort of opportunity space, right? It's not just in, hey, we're trying to create pro gamers, right? That is the same way as, that we may have Ivy going to pro, right, from Purdue here, but that's a 1%er. The rest, the value proposition is in what is providing to the student culture, what is providing to those teams and to the athletic department. But there's also opportunity space across in industry, right? As we've just heard on the upfront, but there's computer science, informatics, narrative design, marketing, sociology, business communications. My son's a major back there. Psychology, business, marketing, management, media studies, production, music, as we heard. So there's so many intersection points. The difficulty arises is that gaming and esports can play a role across so many different silos on a campus. And I believe that it's relevant across all of these sort of different student engagement points. It's just in some ways, I think the opportunity is also its difficulty because as we know, and it's not a secret, but universities are very siloed and it's hard sort of to work interdepartmentally across curricularly. But it's great to hear now that Chris is starting to solve some of that and Purdue's recognizing it and hey, there is a lot we can give to this industry and provide to our students through working in this industry. So it's about reframing the narrative, I think, in a lot of ways of, hey, the stereotype, that's not just pro gaming. I think that is relevant, competitive for sure, but there is a much larger opportunity space. And some of that is being solved, as we could see in 2014, that's Robert Morris, and I kind of just put some logos of universities that have onboarded over the years, but there's now 528 universities that have formal programs. And that seems like a large number, but there is, it's not even a third of all universities across NCAA Division I, II, III, and NAI and junior college. But it's amazing growth stats, right? And I think that just proves the fact that those sort of out there evangelizing it and sort of reframing what it is and providing the opportunity space vision is starting to solve some of that. And I want to show this video because in 2016 to about 18, actually the Big Ten through with Riot Games partnership had a sort of club elevated competition set. And this video was made not through Big Ten or not through the Big Ten network, but through an intern from a Big Ten university that was working in traditional athletics at Big Ten network, but also loved, not surprisingly, video games and particularly League of Legends. And he just natively recognized that, hey, I think some of the why solving was aligning to traditional sports. And I just want to show this video because I think it's tremendous. And it kind of creates the alignment between League of Legends and traditional sports. Let's see.
Illinois, coming flying out the gate.
The University of Maryland starting up on the blue side.
Is he gonna get away? No.
More kills than minutes in this game. Illinois are running away with it. It's going to be Maryland taking a 2-0.
You want to watch a bloodbath? You watch this.
So that to me is amazing, right? That is the Big Ten network, making that correlation. It's spectacular, but what it also does is also highlight some of the difficulties because that program went away. So esports and the intersection of academia and scholastic, as Jim O'Hagan knows, is complex because there are third-party players and there are complex relationships because they own the game. So unfortunately, that Big Ten program kind of went away because I think the Big Ten had a little bit of an issue of they sort of shifted to prizing of scholarship, and that was a narrative that they weren't really particularly comfortable with, as you can imagine, just sort of the alignment of a Big Ten athletic conference and prizing what that could potentially mean. I think it's a new day now with NIL and everything else. So, but that was a lot of certainly like of the 2.5 years of the NCAA exploration or research was helping solve on the sort of the Board of Governors side is helping understand those intersection points and how it can play a role and what it means to have these other complex relationships and ways to navigate that. Because, there are still some growing pains within our space. We need to do a better job, and I think we're doing, as we've seen the growth of justifying and understanding and proving the value to administrators and what the opportunity in the scholastic esports space is, the cross-curricular engagement opportunities, campus culture, student opportunity in the industry, whether it's digital, interactive media, and the like. And also, we have a problem in discovery, right? There is no true sort of one source of information. Every school that starts kicking tires on what this could mean for their institution have to start from zero and have a hard time understanding the landscape because it is severely fragmented. This is what the sort of the scholastic university landscape looked like in 2018, which is a mishmash of different conferences and publisher initiatives and different associations and governing groups. And this is what it looks like now. This is probably even a little short because I think without a lack of true agency and true leadership and true university sort of high-level administrator dictating what it is, what this can be, it's being driven and dictated by all the different kind of third-party actors, a lot of MMR groups and a lot of different platforms and VC startups, which it's a reverse model than I think the university setting is used to, because they're thriving off of this fragmentation and off of this mishmash of what it is. When the true value, as we're trying to deliver to students, is not in some ways being protected, because I think we can all agree that universities have a mission to drive, and as educators, we want the best to drive the value to students, and all of these actors, not all, but there are some bad ones in here, are value extractors, in my opinion, and the model is upside down. But that's par for the course, right? And this is a work in process. We're in the first inning. So I think if I think back to, and I'll use a sport narrative of the start of college football, there were a lot of similar narratives to that start and what it looked like and the mess that it was until universities said like, hey, this is something that is important. We should put our arms around it. Because in the end, right, I think when I pull myself out and say like, man, what is going on? I always go back to like, listen, this is value across the space because it's important to game publishers, right? Those that own the IP. They see true value in their title being engaged by this unique student body that is passionate and they want to make lifelong gamers, right? And having that intersection matching with important university brands to supporting what their game is as a lifelong sort of attachment. And also, I think they see the alignment with just sort of in traditional athletics and that brand value. Universities, we're getting there, right? But certainly to see the value in student engagement, right? And a lot of those 528 universities that have formalized, most of them have some sort of formal footing on campus. And what we're seeing is a lot of the rec spaces, right? The pool tables, dartboards, ping pong are being renovated into sort of esports arenas because I think the recognition point is like, hey, maybe people don't like to play ping pong that much or pool anymore, that they like to engage or maybe in between class, pop in, play a game of Fortnite, talk to their friends, and then go to the next physics class. And also, I think, again, for thinking about students, right, is that opportunity space, understanding that this is the medium that they're interested in, that they value, that they love. I promise you there's probably people playing, I'd say about 50%, well, this might be too early, but everyone's playing video games in the dorm rooms. They just are, right? So why not create a space where they can come and do so together under a Purdue support or under university support that sort of says to them, we get you, right? We understand what's important to you. Do so here. So again, thinking about student value, right? Right now, I think the adoption rate of 528 schools has outpaced sort of that scholastic guidance space, right? So we really need that university, and it's great to hear that some people way smarter than myself are starting to kick tires and say like, hey, we need to put some academic rigor against this and put some leadership against it, which is massively important, because at the end, it's all about sort of this guy again, right? I go back to him because, as an educator, those stories and sort of those success stories stick with you. And he thrived, and he was such a great kid. He went on after Robert Morris to get a graduate degree and play in an esports program. So he embraced the opportunity and ran with it, and is successful. He's not a pro gamer. He's working in marketing in the industry. So I feel like Scholastic Esports did the job for him, and he became the first in the world to become an esport collegiate varsity athlete graduate. And this reminds me, and I always kind of default back to my athletic roots, but again, it's not a pro gamer, but going back to the first, one of the best, John Wooden, one of the best kind of basketball coaches of all time, after winning his 7th consecutive NCAA title, they said like, oh, tell us about reflect on that. And what he said is what sticks with me too. I will tell you in 10 years when I see how successful these kids are. In the big picture, the most treasured victories will have little to do with the scoreboard. It's watching the young people you had the honor of coaching become people of significance, which is exactly what Derek Michaud did, and is exactly what Scholastic and Varsity Esports did. And I think it has that opportunity space really across North America. So thank you very much to Purdue and for this important gathering, and thanks to you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the most important thing. Kurt is the proud father of a current Boilermaker. So, yeah.